Hello everyone, my name is Lukasz Kabzinski, I'm 36 years old. This is part 3 of the Airline documentary. If you haven't seen part 1, click on a link down below at the very bottom of the video. In the meantime, I would like to invite you to subscribing to my Facebook page, Spy Airlines 2021, also my website, spyairline.com, and all other social media accounts that I have. This video is free of charge, so if anyone charged you any money, make sure to request money back. This video is absolutely free of charge. Everything that I present here can be treated as testimony under penalty of perjury. The purpose of this documentary is essentially to bring all the perpetrators to justice. Quick recap of part 1. In 2020, I was employed as an analyst for a leading private aviation company. In June 2020, when all the restrictions loosened, I went to Poland for vacation, for holidays, and I was invited to this camping trip by a friend of mine whom I hadn't seen at the time for 5 years. During this camping trip, I blacked out, I lost consciousness. I didn't think much about it at the time. Later, it became apparent to me that the reason I lost my consciousness wasn't caused by alcohol itself. What I managed to establish by visiting the same estate that we are camping on and talking to the owner of the estate in December 2020, I managed to establish that after I passed out, there were more than 20 individuals that arrived at that estate after I lost my consciousness.
Jechali, nie? W nocy. Ekipa. I tak z ciekawości, ile tych osób było, jak ty przyjechali? To było 10 osób, 15, 20 czy więcej? Chyba grupa taka. Ale sporo, nie? I to było tak, ale co, 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus?
Nie, to ponad 20.
Ponad 20.
Ale nie liczyłem tego później.
No pewnie, a proporcja kobiet na mężczyzn to było więcej kobiet czy mężczyzn?
Mężczyzn.
Ale kobiet, 30% kobiet, 70% mężczyzn, czy...
Razy nie byłem wścibski. No pewnie. No, nawet przecież 2 razy tam byłem kołować. No, a gdzie my byliśmy? To nie było łące.
Na łące?
Na łące to nie było w pomieszczeniu? Nie. Pomieszczeniu to było, na drugi, na rano, tak? Zrobiliśmy sobie, a w którym pomieszczeniu to było? Można to zobaczyć to pomieszczenie?
Once he said this, he quickly changed his narrative. He started talking about things that were in my recollection, but the way he was talking about them as if he was telling me something new. He told me everything that happened till I lost my consciousness, which is around 9 p.m. and after 4 a.m. when I woke up. Those things were in my recollection, but it seems like he realized that he told me something that he shouldn't have told me and he had to improvise, quickly come up with something, right? And that was probably the easiest way he could have come up with, telling me things that I knew about, but in a way as if I didn't know them. What happened since the publication of part 2 in Polish? I published it on New Year's Eve of 2021. I was invited for an interview in a police precinct located in a larger town that's closest to the village where we were camping at. I moved to Poland in September of 2021 due to housing disrepair. There was a work from home arrangement. In November of 2021, I took a week off to complete part 2 of the documentary in Polish. It took me an additional month to anonymize it. When I came back from that holiday in November of 2021, I was told that my contract will terminate on December 17th, coincidentally exactly 12 months after my unfair dismissal from the private aviation company in question. That also happened on December 17th, but 2020. It seemed like it was a subtle way of them letting me know why my contract finished. So I got back to London on January 11th this year. Immediately when I came back, it was difficult for me to work, concentration, everything. It has to do with strange conditions in this apartment. And long story short, war in Ukraine, my unfair dismissal litigation, doing everything by myself. It's a lot of work, and like I said, in under normal circumstances, it would have taken me less to work on this documentary. It takes a lot of work. I'm going to start off with all of my conversations with Sebastian from July 14th of 2020. If for some reason you find this boring, feel free to jump to around 40 minutes mark. It took me some time to realize that he was giving me hints, and again, translations may not do it justice, but I did my best. Here he sends me pictures from reenactment pictures that we took on the very next day, on July 12, after waking up. I took some videos and pictures of them, of Sebastian and Tomasz dressed up in their military kits. He sends me the very same picture, edited as if it was filmed through the night vision. Obviously, I didn't associate any meanings with that at the time. He then asks me to write birthday wishes to his friend in English.
Od niedzieli znowu mam tydzień wolnego. Teraz uciekam na 2 doby do roboty. Od niedzieli mam tydzień wolnego. Ja pierdolę. Muszę mieć w tym zdjęcie, nie? To nawet, Łukasz, można by trochę, wiesz, podbrudzić, tam farbką odrobinę, no coś tam porobić, patrzę, jakieś przyczepić, zajebista sprawa. Czekaj, Łukasz, bo w robocie jestem. Zaraz, Łukaszku, tylko ja przynajmniej się obudziłem, nie? Praca jest. Musisz przyjechać znowu do Polski, bo...
Now this bit is interesting because he tells me that next time I'm in Poland, even though I was in Poland at the time, and I'm pretty confident, I told him that I'm going to be in Poland until the end of July, until I get called back from furlough. Maybe he forgot about it, I don't know, worth noting.
Do mnie taka firma się odezwała, firma Jest to firma szyjąca takie kamizelki, kurwa, nie? I w ogóle... Co o dziwo, nawet sylsi śmigają w ich sprzęcie, nie? Szyją dla mnie kamizelkę w aorze i chcą coś takiego, co jest tutaj. To i zrobiłeś ty. Więc to musi być na pełnej kurwie i piździe, nie? Na pewno też ci się to przyda, skoro takie zdjęcia z tym twoim tam Łukasz Kabrziński, ta literka C będą na całym świecie, kurwa, i w ogóle, nie?
Mentions broadcasting these pictures to the entire world. Never planned to begin with. It's a short video that I shot that's unlisted on my YouTube. Interesting, why would he said something about broadcasting it to the entire world? Now in that message, disguised as some sort of spelling mistakes, are probably names of 3 people that I know.
Jak jakiś menel wyszedłem. Bo to nawet byłem napierdolony i w ogóle to było tego niechcenia to na tym, ale na drabinie, wiadomo, skupiłem się na zdjęciach w Chemie, a w Chemie były przyjebane, ja muszę mieć bez Chemii, nie? Zajebiście wyszło. No dobra, pamiętaj, robimy film dla... Im bardziej nie biegał film, tylko takie... Te screeny takie, co tam pisze Łukasz Kapliński w ogóle, wiesz, to z tej drabiny, o to im biega. Jak jest coś fajnego, będzie miejsce, trzeba znaleźć. Ja już sobie sam we własnym zakresie kręcę spodnie kraja w aorze pustynnym. Będzie tak samo jak tu, tylko że będę w aorach, nie pustynnych. I w ogóle kamza będzie od niego. I takie tam inne. I to pas. Dobra, kurwa, muszę się kabel napić. Oni chcą, żeby jechać 15-16. Uwaga! Na parapetowe do tego Bogdana, co było mu zimno, tego komandosa w tej koszuli. Do miejscowości, nie wiem jak się nawet nazywa, coś koło Mirosławca. O, dziękuję, kurwa, mam traumę. Ale pójść z tobą w środku dnia, o godzinie 17. Ubrany w dżinsy, w jakąś koszulkę, w kominiarkę, czarną balaklawę, ten cały sprzęt w aorze, kurwa, tą kamizelkę, peltory na ryju, z karabinem i wejść w tłum ludzi przy molo i nakręcić coś jak tego, jak ten sasu tam w tej Tanzanii czy w Kenii, kurwa, u tych murzynów. To dopiero było, kurwa.
What he's saying is very odd. Getting into a crowd of people on a beach, a balaclava, ski mask. These people are not interested in wearing balaclavas and masks. They want to show themselves in those military uniforms and kits.
Nie wiem, Łukasz, czy ty to rozumiesz?
Didn't pay that much attention to what exactly was he saying.
Ty zdjęcie zdam teraz to jezioro w Tuchomku?
Another strange bit, he mentions some sort of a lake in Tuchomek, a village or town in Poland. I've never posted any such thing, right? So why would he say that? This whole conversation just, felt weird. I thought he was just,
Ja mam do tej pory traumę, mi to siedzi w głowie. Ludzie prosi, tylko jadą się napierdolą i zapominają. Ja mam w głowie te krajobrazy, tą ziemię trzęsącą się przy każdym kroku. Zapach tego gówna i tam nie było nic związanego z militariami. Nic z militariami, kurwa. Przyjałkami się napierdzi. O jest. Przyjeżdżaj znowu jak najszybciej, bo tę kamizelkę to wstydzie, będą robili mi dwa, nie? Potem jeszcze są, no, dobra, to będziemy, nakręcimy coś innego właśnie dla tej firmy. I w ogóle. I w końcu ktoś mi zacznie za to great, kurwa, dawać, a nie fanty do chuja. Przecież taka kamizelka to kosztuje ponad kafla, nie? O tym głośno było mieli sprawę z krajem i takimi dwoma firmami z coś tam, kurwa, nie? Bo oni robią dokładnie to samo, co ta firma, nawet i kraj to chuj. Coś tam, nie? Kazali mi zmienić nazwę.
This seemingly irrelevant piece of information in the greater context of this case plays a significant role. Take note of that. This is quite crucial to the case.
I później zaczęli, są kilka zdjęć Sealsów i Dev Gru, kurwa, jak zapierdolałem w kamizelkach. Ja chłopa mam znajomych, właściciela tej firmy, nie? Jadą na niego jak chuj, że szyje podróby, podjebki i w ogóle. On mówi mi wprost, szyję to z oryginalnych materiałów, które ściągam ze Stanów za w chuj szmalu. I sprzedaję te kamizelki po 1/3 ceny, jak te firmy amerykańskie, coś tam sysy, kurwa.
Double S.
I dlatego Amerykanie wolą brać ode mnie, kurwa, bo jest taniej. Dobra, Łukaszku. To już nie są jaja, to już taka reklama na świat, nie? Wiesz, kurwa, zobacz u niego, tam Amerykanie łażą w jego ciuchach, marniejsi wszyscy, nie? Pierdol mi ten film do 30 sekundy, nie? Tam każdy mówi, że to wygląda jak... A już ci napisałem wcześniej, dobra. Daję wymiary płyty, bo to będzie szyte pod płytę, nie? Kurwa masz, no, mega staw. Znajdę ci zdjęcie, to ci wyślę, nie? Musimy znaleźć konkretną miejscówkę na zrobienie krótkiego filmu i zdjęć. Konkretną, kurwa, wyjebistą w chuj, nie? Nie wiem jeszcze jak będę ubrany. Na pewno to będą koszulka, żeby łapa była widać wyjebana. Koszulka na 100%, okulary, włosy, już tak lepsze włosy, nie? I trzeźwy, słuchawy. Możliwe, że to będą dżinsy, Łukasz. Możliwe, że to będą dżinsy niebieskie, bo fajnie, granatowe, bo fajnie wyglądają do Aora, nie? Jakiś samochód na żwirze rozjebanym. Albo ta żwirownia, no kurwa, coś znajdziemy, nie? W ogóle. Dobra, mam, zobacz. Pierwsze zdjęcie to jest Seal. Drugie zdjęcie to jest Dev Gru, autentyczny, w jego i kamizelkach, nie?
I think at this very moment you can tell by the way he's talking and what he's talking about that he is definitely trying to convey something cryptically to me. Take note of the background in that picture and compare it against the mansion within the area 5 minutes away from the area where we were camping at, which at the time was still under construction. Notice the similarities, right? Also pay attention to the subsequent pictures that he sent to me. Those pictures form a story.
Trzecie i czwarte to jest kamizelka, którą on weźmie mi i zrobi, bo ja mam małe płyty, ja chciałem tylko i małą, nie? Ostatnie zdjęcie to jest ta kamizelka, ale z większymi płytami, ja będę miał lepszą, bo z mniejszymi w Multicam Black. Jak sobie skręcę Multicam Black mur, znaczy ktoś mi da na 100%, nie? To musi być rozjebana chałupa, mur, nawet łomem zrobimy dziurę jakby przez strzeliny, nie? I jakiś napis po arabsku, cykmyk, i ja w Multicam Black i w tym. O Jezu, ty to masz rację. Torpedowy, kurwa Łukasz, siadamy w brykę, robimy zdjęcia, kurwa. Słońce musi być, bo oni się najbardziej zajarali tymi zdjęciami, co ja waży po drabinie. Tam było słonecznie i ładnie, nie? Jesteś mistrzem, coś porobisz. Kurwa, to skoro to się zaczyna od tego, że ty mi napierdalasz filmy, zdjęcia, a mi tu wytwórca kamizelek, których używa Dev Gru, co zabili Bin Ladena, daje kamizelkę, żebym sobie w niej zdjęcia porobił. Co to będzie później, Łukaszku? Łukasz, bo te twoje kadry, one wyrażają ruch. Przedstawiają jakąś historię. Scenę batalistyczną. One wyrażają ruch. Przedstawiają jakąś historię. Scenę batalistyczną. No, coś zajebistego. Ja dalej nie mogę pozbyć się tej traumy, A oni mówią, że było zajebiście. Mówię, kurwa. I takim tam pojechałem, że chuj na tym forum. Mówię, co tam kurwa było zajebistego? Śmierdziało gnojem, żadnych karabin. Ja te szelki za 600 zł. Łukasz, to byłoby na lumpeksie za dychę. Ja bym tego nie kupił. No bo te chińskie PCU, kurwa, za 200. Kurki z Gorateksu po 3,5 stówy, 3 kolor Woodlandy. Jak na Eliksie tego jest chuj po 180 zł. Ja pierdolę, no kurwa! Skurwili się umysłowo. Tak, moja matka też chleb dała ptakom. Sosy stare. No kurwa, trzeba być spierdolonym, żeby tak urodziny urządzić. Ja pierdolę. I wyobraź sobie, że my tak. Miałem 15 jechać na jakąś parapetówę. Oczywiście co? Będę w pracy. Nigdzie nie jadę, kurwa, nie jadę, mam traumę, nie? Nie mogę się na nich patrzeć, kurwa. No i później we wrześniu na jakiś poligon. Pierdolę, ja wolę sobie foty powstrykać i chuj. Do lasu do Oliwy pójść, kurwa, na piwo. Wiesz, to są takie osoby, z którymi ja sobie tak zdałem sprawę. Ja z nimi tylko rozmawiam, jak jestem najebany na zlocie w Bornym. Tylko jak jestem najebany, bo na trzeźwo to o czym? I ten chłop w tej koszuli, ten snajper z tą czapką, traktorzysta, kurwa. Wyglądają takich hamów, co wodę piją z metalowego wiadra ze studni. Kurwa, małpy. Wyglądają takich hamów, co wodę piją z metalowego wiadra ze studni. Kurwa, małpy. A co drugie, jeszcze tu ten Marek, ten co będzie, że ma AIDS.
Marek never said that. It would be against common sense.
Na 2 tygodnie przyjeżdża do Gdańska, myślę, że sobie ze mną na plaży będzie łaził, na lumpeks. Może sobie wyobrazić mnie jadącego po niego do Gdańska tramwajem. Ja tam rzuciłem 2 tygodnie, tydzień, 2 tygodnie, no jakiś czas i temu. Rzuciłem post, że potrzebuję sprzęt Elisa. Wiesz, Elisa stary, Alice, ładownice, manierki w ogóle, nie? Tylko żeby był taki naprawdę z początku lat 90., przełom lat 80., 90., ten kolor oliwkowy. Nie te zielone takie z 2004, nie? Ktoś wziął i napisał, sobie mam cały komplet, mogę ci sprzedać za 250 zł. A ja, za ile? Za ile ty kurwo chcesz mi to sprzedać? Kupiłem sobie wczoraj na OLX-ie za 30 zł razem z wysyłką, nie? Tak wygląda, ta koszula jeszcze powinna być upierdolona od zaprawy, od cykolu, kurwa, operator betoniarki. W ogóle, jeżeli kupujesz rzeczy na lumpach hurtowo, Maka kupuje hurtowo, gdzieś tam tego ma. To jeżeli kupiłeś coś, kurwa, coś tamtego, no to sprzedaj mi, kurwa, z minimalnym twoim zyskiem. Będę kulturalny, dam ci zarobić 50 zł, bo dałeś dychę, nie? A innych opierdol na hajs, ale nie mnie, no kurwa. Jestem tak nakręcony, że się w głowie nie mieści.
What I didn't include in part 1 was that Maciej was trying to sell me a used Arc'teryx jacket. That jacket was too small for me, but nevertheless I thought, you know, I'll let the kid make some money. Told him I'm gonna pay him later. I took the jacket, and then during the camping trip where all the hostilities ensued, at some point he pulled out his phone and said, it seemed like he was recording, "You are in fact a fat sucker." And at which point I went to the car, I took out that jacket from my trunk and I gave it back to him.
Kurwa, nie był nawet popity.
During the camping trip, everything was in abundance. On the very next day in the morning, there was nothing to drink, soft drinks.
Do wódki musi być dla mnie kola, kurwa, nie jakiś ten napój, ten bark, coś tam, bo to w kartonie też na bank był ze śmietnika. Mi się to z Żydem kojarzy, kurwa. On jeszcze w pracuje, zarabia po 4-5 koła, kurwa. I jeszcze tym handluje. Co on zrobi z tymi pieniędzmi? Do grobu weźmie do chuja? Ja pierdolę, kurwa. Jeszcze jedno mnie wkurwia. Ten Tomek to jest taki daj. Ja im powiedziałem, po co wam to kurwa? Bo chodziło o jakiś wojskowy polski pasek. Dałem komuś, kto w wojsku polskim jest. A Tomek, miałeś mi dać. Ja mówię, ale po co ci go wpierdolisz go w szafę? Masz sam dół tej szafy i nigdy go nie ubierzesz, kurwa. Po co ty to zbierasz? Po co ci to? Tak samo te spodnie Helikona. Maka brał i gadał. Nie wiem, bo to coś ostatnio gadał, że nic nie dostał. Ja mu dałem, bo byłem pijany. Teraz mam chęć wziąć i się spytać go. I łazisz w tych spodniach, czy pierdolesz w szafę, czy dałeś jakiemuś żurowi? Bo ja pierdoliłbym je za 50 zł.
the trousers that Sebastian mentions. When I picked them up, he gave me a pair of olive drab pants, tactical pants, gift for driving him to and from the camping trip. They were too small for me. I ended up giving them to my dad.
Najlepiej by mi Łukasz brał i pasował. Już jest opcja tego tutaj, przy hole i w ogóle, zobacz. Zadałem Łukasz pytanie chłopowi z Gdańska, czy za 5 dych sprzeda mi sam montaż. Zobacz, sprzedaję całkiem za 100, żeby sam montaż interesuje, dam mu 5 dych, jest z Gdańska.
He has to make one out of these two helmets, right? Take a note of that. This will become relevant in this case.
Gosh, to jest 100 razy lepiej, nie?
This is a video from a shooting range with Franciszek, my brother and my uncle. It will be featured later part of this video.
Ja już dawno spałem, nie? Charakterystyczna jest tu torba. Nie karabin, torba. Oni zapierdolali z tymi torbami na kasę, kurwa. Charakterystyczna torba przewieszona przez ramię. Ta wielka torba. Hej, bambaryło, telefon mi się psuje. Czekaj, Łukaszku.
So this is some surplus military equipment I bought.
Ogólnie to byłbym chujem, gdybym coś od ciebie wziął za malowanie tego karabinu. Wiozłeś mnie, kurwa, kilometry nie wiadomo ile do tej Neandertali, kurwa. Żarcie postawiłeś i wódkę, ja mam pieniądze ciebie brać, Łukasz, no kurwa. Ochujałeś, kupiłem farbki, wszystko pomaluję ci przy okazji, no. Niedziela, poniedziałek chyba ci pomylię, czekaj. Ja jutro, Łukasz, biorę do roboty M14, bo muszę zetrzeć z niej trochę farby, za bardzo pomalowana, musi być bardzo łoże dojebane i kupiłem zajebistą farbkę wczoraj. A zobaczcie efekt, kurwa, to jest normalnie w Woodlandzie ona jest, ale tam zrobię takie lekkie pasy, kurwa, jakbyś krylonem takim piaskowym pomalował, bardziej nawet takim białym. Wiesz, jak te wozy piechoty morskiej z lat 80., takie w kształcie rekina, one pływały i jeździły tam w filmie, no kurwa, takie stare, no.
Ale mówisz, że to lepiej
Sprzęt, ja pierdolę.
Ale mówisz, że to lepiej
Sprzęt, ja pierdolę. Łukasz, żaden sprzęt DGLCS, nie MLCS. Pierwszy był DGLCS, Dev Gru Land Carrying System. Później był MLCS, Maritime Land Carrying System, czyli przez SEALsów używany. Później był SFLCS, Special Force Land Carrying System, nie? SFLCS miał metki, MLCS był bez metek, DGLCS w ogóle nie miał, kurwa, metek i był taki jasny, nie? Bez metek lepszy. Zobacz tą ładownicę na samym dole, czy to jest taki połóż na szelsy, wiesz, do strzelby. Zobacz, czy to jest połóż na szelsy. Zobacz ten IFAK, czy to jest długopisem napisane, wiesz, flamastrem, nie? Bo to nie jest na bank Eagle, to nie jest na bank Eagle. Zobacz to, jak to wygląda w ogóle, może zdjęcie jakieś, to nie jest Eagle. To ci w ogóle tu nie pasuje, nie? Tu powinna być ładownica na magii, po boku taka jedna. Kurwa, ty masz tu podwójną do M60 i M240, wiesz, General Pulse, ładownica na radio i na manierkę bym przypierdolił, też jako taki, wiesz, uniwersalne na wszystko, nie? U góry koniecznie admin, no kurwa, odjebałbym ją, no normalnie. Karabin ci w niedzielę pomaluję, niedziela, poniedziałek w pracy. Musisz go przywieźć tak, do mnie do domu, wiesz gdzie ja mieszkam. Albo jutro, albo środa, czwartek, moja mama ci otworzy drzwi, da mi znać. Albo przywieź mi, jak będę w domu, piątek, sobota. Z Niemiec przywiezionych starych farb Humbrole, nie? Piaskowy, kurwa, w kolorze Dark Earth. Ja pierdolę, metal gun i w ogóle. Będzie grube. A Łukasz, kurwa, takie pomalowanie to jest, kurwa, tam 30 minut, kurwa, nie? Suszarka do tego, do włosów mam specjalną i chuj, zrobione. Aż te torby nadal są drogie, średnia cena to jest 360 zł, one po tyle krążą, nie? To jest mega zakurwista torba, ja bym się nie łaził do roboty na siłowni wszędzie, bo tam można schować wszystko, kurwa, nie? Giwerem i nawet można owinąć w jakieś szmaty, kurwa. Jeżeli jest za długa, to zdjąć kolbę, kurwa, owinąć w jakiś ręczniczek, łamy frotę i zakurwiasz, nie? Taka sama torba, tylko Black Hawka, nie? Chyba kosztuje też chyba 300. O, tak jak akurat przyjedziesz, to kręcimy film, bo ja mam problem z hełmem, kurwa. Ten, co miałem mi kupić, to okazało się, że to nie jest ten MiG TC 2001, tylko normalny ten Fast z odczepionymi szynami. Powiedziałem, żeby mi zrobił zdjęcie od środka, taki cieniutki, wiesz. Jak na pewno to, co do ciebie przyszło, taki na milimetr. A to musi być gruby taki, kurwa, jak nikt, nie? Ale trafiłem już na Allegro za 50 zł. Fajny, oliwkowy, pomaluję go, orzepuję, przyjebie Norotosa. Tego Norotosa kupiłem za 55 zł. Z przejściówką do normalnego tego żurawia. No wiesz, Ringo, czy tam jak to się nazywa. Mam tam cynk tym gnoją wszystkim, nie? Że będę kręcił film, promocja, reklama, tak, oni sobie to ci pożyczymy i latarkę, kurwa, i strobo, wszystko tylko nas oznacz, że to ode mnie i takie tam różne, nie? Do tego hełmu, żeby poprzyczepiać. Jeszcze Łukasz czaje się na kopię, replikę noktowizji, ale nie taki jeden monokular, no, podwójny musi być, podwójny, kurwa. Kupię sobie podjebę żurawia, przyczepię taki podwójny monokular i albo taki poczwórny, to robię do głowy Wiksa. Zajawka to będzie, Łukasz, taka, że nawet, kurwa, my prześcigniemy. Pamiętasz, ty wysłałeś mi zdjęcie takiego typa, który do mnie niby podobny jest. Kos, coś tam, kurwa, i w ogóle, nie? On też bierze i reklamuje tą firmę, kurwa, nie? Wystąpił ostatnio w ich i kamizelce. Oni, Seba, jeżeli porobisz ten wąski, no to co ty porobiłeś tam, nie? To my go przebijemy w chuj, kurwa. No to biegasz, jak ty to porobisz, ten wąski ekran, czy co tam, no to w ogóle, to będzie przedstawiało taką wycinkę z akcji, dynamikę, ruch, coś się tam, kurwa, działo. Widzisz, to jest on i w ich kamizelce, musimy go przebić, bo to jest takie tam pozowane. Tam wiesz, porobimy coś na tej żwirotnej, no to tam wiecie, kurwa, no to Barniewice, nie? Kurwa, to będzie normalnie jak z filmu, SEAL Team. Tak. Pojedziemy tam w weekend, w sobotę albo w niedzielę i się wpierdolimy na tą pogłębiarkę, co tam pływa. Można od brzegu wejść, nie? No, jak coś to cię podsadzę, kurwa, i włazimy tam. I tam ponapierdolamy. To Łukasz jest najbardziej na propsie, to tutaj. To pod tą kamizelkę, co ty masz, przypierdolali na sam dół i to wyglądało jak funny pack. To jest na propsie w chuj normalnie. Centralnie zaczepione pod ładownicami do M4 na dole tam, nie? Na jeden palc, tak. Tak ma wisieć i tym dać. Jest zajebiste, bo i dojebane takie. Super. Łukasz, nie będziesz musiał zszywać tych pasków, znaczy, że je utniesz, żeby one się nie strzępiły, musisz wziąć na kuchence elektrycznej, wiesz, podpalasz te oczko i końcówką tego paska tak przejechać, ona się tak idealnie stopi, nie za mocno, nie? A później przewleć przez tą drabinkę, jeden pasek z drugim, cyk, cyk, i to się ściśnie.
This is cryptic communication, which obviously at the time I failed to notice. I don't communicate cryptically with people. I was introduced to the concept of cryptic communication in October 2020 by Leah. From now on, I'm covering the remainder of July, starting with July 14th. July 14th, 2020, we went to the summer house that we have next to the airport. Myself, my dad, my mom, my mom's best friend, and my brother. In Gdańsk, adjacent to the airport, are summer houses. As silly as it sounds, it's a Polish thing. It's not visible through isolated faces and everything, but just strange smiles, exchanges, telltale signs of an inside joke of sorts. Very unusual behavior, out of character behavior, like that definitely caught my attention.
Shaky Stevens, nie? Shaky Stevens. Ja się kiedyś kochałem w Shaky Stevensie. Ten mam gówniarą, no. I to jest wolno. W podstawówce. Widzisz jaką masz łapkę?
Czyli wolisz
Tutaj po lewej.
po lewej, czyli ta, czy ta? A, lewa strona.
Tak, o.
Proszę bardzo.
Dziękuję.
Na zdrowie.
Napiwek przeleję
Wszystkiego dobrego.
przelewem.
Nie ma za co.
At that point, I got called by my co-worker from that private aviation company, Shirwan. He's a funny guy, you know. He's an IT guy. He walks around the office and just distracts people, in a positive way. Just jokes around and stuff. I wouldn't call him a close friend. It was the very first time he called me on WhatsApp. It felt very out of ordinary. I wouldn't say we have that close of a bond. He seems to be the very best friend of Leah. Another bit that was interesting that I did not mention in part 2, on July 12th, he sent me a message, a picture of himself wearing a face mask with a caption, "This thing in heat is killing me, I can't breathe," right? That picture showed up as removed because in September 2020, when I bought a new phone, coincidentally, all of my media, images and videos from my WhatsApp, they disappeared, they were removed. He called me on WhatsApp, most likely on that day, however, I don't have a timestamp, I don't have a screenshot. We talked about COVID, fatality rates, that kind of nonsense, and at some point he brought up this Rolex watch. So he seems to be some sort of a Rolex fanboy. He wears something that resembles a Rolex. He came up with this model, Pepsi, Rolex model Pepsi, whatever, that he couldn't get a hold of in the UK. He told me that there's this luxury watch shop, Gallery Mall in Gdańsk. I don't know how he would know that. Told me they have it and that there's a female that works in that shop and that I should ask for this watch, build a relationship with that woman, treat it as if it was a quest in a video game, as if it was a quest in Call of Duty. Obviously sounded very out of place. The fuck is he talking about, right? But nevertheless, I was like, yeah, sure. I was very keen. I didn't have any plans on doing that. Coincidentally, at the time I was playing Call of Duty, the newest Modern Warfare that was released at the time. Also around that time, I started noticing very unusual social media activity. Felt like there was something going on my social media that everyone knew about, except for me. That's how it felt like. My coworkers started changing their avatars on social media, surprised facial expressions, that kind of a thing. It felt strange. It just, a lot of those screenshots disappeared from my phone, specifically around September and December 2020. Question is how, right? And who? And why? By now you can answer these questions. This one is very interesting, was posted by Liana, a customer experience manager from that private aviation company.
It's gonna be in anyway, like. It's gonna be in anyway, like.
couldn't be in anyways. One of the nicknames of one of the people tagged in that post looked very much like mine. Some posts from Leah, the co-worker who I mentioned in previous parts, seems to be playing a significant role in this story. Here are some of her social media posts from that period. At the time, at least based on what she told me, she was in Canada. She originally is from Canada. She flew to Canada right before the lockdown in March of 2020. You can probably spot some, subtle jokes, remarks, inside jokes, nudes, Toronto, send all the nudes, as in noodles, right? Innuendos, I think. New profile picture. Girls just want to have fun, but girls just want to have fun. Private aviation company in question, my employer at the time, posted a very unusual Instagram story. Maldives seems to be playing some sort of a theme here as well. I haven't seen posts like this on their social media before. In addition to that, they also posted some sort of a puzzle, emoji puzzle, something very out of ordinary. They did not post anything of that nature prior. Now, another unusual event that happened after the camping trip, well, prior to the camping trip, figured, I'm just gonna clear up the closet. I listed some of those items. One of them was my BlackBerry phone, the second phone that I use with my Polish SIM card. I got a reply from a guy who offered to exchange it for an iPhone 5S. It's a much better phone, it's easier to sell. It's an iPhone, right? I obviously was very keen. So a guy shows up on the wrong side of the building, shows me the iPhone 5S, right? I look at it. There was a picture of a girl, just some random girl wearing clothes and nothing strange. And there was a table filled up with disassembled phones, like a repair shop kind of a thing. Disassembled phone on a desk. We swapped. On the way back, he mentioned that you worked abroad at some point as well, somewhere in Germany. Guy had a strange vibe. I remember telling to my dad that he seemed like some sort of undercover kind of a thing. Obviously, I wasn't serious when I said that. Just that's how it felt like. It felt like in conjunction with that car, right? On July 12th. Very strange, very odd, but I didn't think about it twice. I searched for his phone number on Facebook. He turned out to be some sort of active duty military guy. July 16th, 2020, we went out to a shooting range. Myself, my brother, and Franciszek, and that friend who I mentioned in part 2, Martin. His nickname is Taylor. He works at that shooting range as an instructor. A little bit about him. We were all part of that same airsoft team years back. Comes from a very wealthy family. Just to give you some idea of how wealthy, on his 18th birthday, he was gifted, at least that's what they told me, BMW Z4. The value of that car, hundreds of thousands of zlotys at the time. Brand new car, right? I remember they showed up. Himself and Franciszek showed up. They visited me. They were waxing with that car. 2006. I did not see him for probably 10 years, if not more. When he saw me, he gave me a very strong hug, very happy to see me and everything. We did some shooting, nothing out of ordinary, some M16A1, the Vietnam era issued rifle, some compact AR-15, Colt 1911, just some basic shooting. Franciszek was playing with a 22 LR pistol for some reason. He did not seem to be interested in actual proper ammo. He was shooting 22 LR. It's a sports caliber.
O, taki już mówię, zdecydowany.
Dobra, Martin, nagrywasz?
Jak? Teraz ty? Raczej w klatę, dobra, niż w głowę. Staraj się bardziej na klatkę. Celuj, musisz patrzeć przez to. Przez dziurkę. Przez nią musisz patrzeć i musisz widzieć ten słupek, który jest na środku. Przeładuj, nie pał, przeładuj po prostu. Zaraz go złapiemy. Dobra. Nieźle.
Na patent by nie przeszło, nie?
Przeszło, bo tam chodzi o grupę, a nie o cel.
Nie, ja pewnie ściągam spust za mocno, nie?
Wspomniałą ręką ściągasz, no, do lewej po prostu, a nie spust co innego.
No, trzeba się popracować.
At some point, Martin received a phone call, and when he picked up, he said, "Yes, boss," in English, which sounded very unusual. There's no need for him to speak in English to his boss. He left for a brief moment. My brother and Franciszek sat on a couch, and we had a discussion about all the gun laws in Poland, everything relating to regulations and everything. And it was a very long conversation. I was standing, and at some point, I felt like they want me to stand for a long period of time. I went to the reception to pay. I came back. We had a brief conversation outside as well. We talked about car rentals and everything. I told them that, it was pretty much my first rental in Poland. I told them that I was very happy with the experience. The app measures your driving style. Money-wise, it was still pretty good given the distance. Martin concurred. He said that he also rented a car. They went to Warsaw to pick something up as well. Interested in that conversation about car rentals. They were like, yeah, it makes more sense to rent than to own. Franciszek at some point said that he thought that Sebastian was driving. Franciszek and Sebastian, they don't know each other. I never introduced them. They're not friends on Facebook. Sebastian, as per his own Instagram post, doesn't even hold a driver's license. Following day, July 17th, I received an email about the end of my furlough leave. So I was supposed to come back to work on August 3rd. Obviously, it was good news. While I was on furlough in May, I was assigned to a newly formed customer success team led by a guy who, before my furlough leave, was technically my peer. I wasn't super happy about this. A French guy, similar name, right? Luke, as of 2022. He left the company based on what I saw on LinkedIn. It might be a typo, it might be something disguised as a typo, cryptic communication disguised as typo. There's going to be a lot of that in this case, but as you can see, it's a deliberate misspelling. At this point, Mateusz posted a very interesting picture on his Instagram, himself with some sort of night vision goggles, right? I mean, obviously it caught my attention, right? I mean, I thought to myself, wow, he must be making a lot of money because, that kind of equipment is, costs a substantial amount of money. So he started posting a lot of pictures of those night vision goggles on his social media, flexing, which, good for him, but I got curious. He also changed his avatar picture, Jesus Christ with a rifle and night vision goggles. It's just an avatar picture on Facebook. There could be some message behind this, right? We all know the story of Jesus Christ, right? July 18th, my parents, my brother, myself, we went to a lake. I played with my drone. I took some pictures. I'm putting it here just to kind of paint the overall picture of that time, right? The atmosphere and everything. Beautiful Polish summer, the atmosphere of that time, right? So July 19th, 2020, we went again to the summer house next to the airport. It's a regular thing during summer, every weekend. On the way in, so my mom was already there. On the way in, my father and I and my brother, we stopped by to buy some alcohol. When I left the shop, there was a police car, one of those larger police cars parked. I didn't see any policemen. That was interesting. But anyways, I took a selfie, and then I even I most likely messaged Franciszek asking him whether it's his buddies or something based on the registration. That's why I took a selfie. Beautiful afternoon, sunny day, July. We had some beer in inflatable swimming pool. Myself, my father, and my brother. My mom took a couple of pictures and videos of us. We went back into the summer house, late afternoon, evening of that day. We had additional alcohol inside. My dad all of a sudden started some sort of a brawl, like some sort of argument. It felt artificial, just like during the camping trip, as if someone pressed a button. The topic that he was articulating on was we, as myself and my sister, because we both live abroad. My sister lives in Dublin, Ireland. He said that we should be sending them money, something along those lines. And I remember that really, it was more of a rant. During the course of that argument, I saw a notification on my Instagram. It was a coworker from that private aviation company, Alexander, liked one of my pictures on Instagram, like an older picture. It's not something that I posted recently, a like now out of nowhere, and it's not like he likes my pictures. I think it was the very first time he liked something on my Instagram. We don't really like each other, and it's very strange. I didn't have any of my coworkers on my social media until March, February, April of 2020, when the whole COVID thing started. People started adding each other on social media and everything, house party calls and everything. Everyone got super social. Definitely reluctant to add them on social media. All of a sudden I see a notification on my Instagram, right? Alexander liked a post. It went through my head, what if he is somehow able to hear that conversation and he's letting me know that he can, right? That it's his way of letting me know, right? What if there's some sort of hack on my phone? Definitely got me worried. It was a very nice afternoon, everything kind of ruined by this whole artificial argument. My brother went to work. He used to work very close by. It was like one bus stop away. I ordered Uber for myself and my mom to go home. We just left him. He walked us to the main gate. I ordered Uber. We got home. We came back the next day. He said that he doesn't remember any of that argument, anything. So July 21st, 2020, we went to Old Town, myself, my mom, and my brother. My dad was supposedly busy with something else, side quests on the side, so plausible, right? So we were by ourselves. As I'm taking a selfie video, my brother, out of context, mentions leper. As in Andrew Leper, a politician who supposedly committed suicide, but everyone knows that it's a homicide staged as suicide. I don't know why he would say that.
Teraz idziemy.
That's all.
As we're walking past the Neptune statue, someone says James Bond in the context of this case. Now I kind of understand where this might have come from. The next day we went to the beach again, just my mom and my brother. My dad had something to do, picked us up. July 23rd, 2020, another shooting range session, this time outdoor shooting range. It used to be a military shooting range in the 90s, then it was abandoned. Pomeranian airsofters used it, milsims and all that. It was known as G2. In 2011-12, they decided to make it commercial shooting range, civilian shooting range. Franciszek was supposed to take us there, drive us there. Took an Uber to the police precinct where he works. He asked us both to sit in the back. He told us a very interesting story. That was super memorable. DUI thing, like a wife reporting her husband. She suspected him of being drunk or something. They could smell alcohol. They checked him, showed up as 0. They checked him again, showed up as 0. Can still smell alcohol. So they figured, let's take the guy to the precinct. Let's have a look. They took him to the precinct. Still shows up as 0. So they let him go. He used an expression. I took him under my dick. Very memorable. Might have been some sort of a cryptic remark, reference. At the shooting range was my uncle. We were supposed to play with his firearms, essentially. He has a Mosin Nagant bolt-action Russian-issued rifle from World War II, Galil assault rifle, an Israeli version of AK-47, right there. And he also had a Glock, standard 9mm pistol. We signed in. I paid for the ammo and everything, admissions. We did some shooting. What was interesting is Franciszek doesn't seem to be very interested in shooting. At some point, and this is why I started recording, it was very odd, he ran back to the reception along with my uncle, told me that he went to buy some ammo for shotgun so he could train, but there was no shotgun, nothing, so I figured maybe he's just... Then my uncle, as we were taping the targets, he said that his payment declined or something.
On tam przeszło mu
Tarcza.
płatność najpierw, a nie wiem, czy on nie będzie jeszcze płacić 10.
Then we went back to a smaller range. We did some shooting. That's pretty much it. He did some pistol firing.
kameruje.
As we concluded, the session, he and it was definitely, I'm 99.9% confident that this firearm was unloaded at the time. He pointed that empty Glock. It was definitely cleared. I'm pretty confident it was cleared. But he pointed that firearm directly at my chest. At the time, I thought maybe he just wants to see if I'm gonna say something. I don't know. For a second or two, that firearm was pointed directly at my chest. So that was super memorable. It was the very first time in my life someone pointed a real, firearm at me. But I'm confident that it was clear because we look at each other's hands and everything. Technically, there was no danger. Maybe it was a message of sorts, or maybe a confidence test. He wanted to see how will I react. He did that in front of my uncle and my brother. When I questioned my brother about this, he said that he does not remember. He doesn't remember. And then a couple of months later, he said, "Oh yeah, I do remember." Also interesting, as you can see, he made a very strange pose, which I thought it was more of a flex, but there might be some kind of an inside joke in there, right? Also, what's interesting, when I looked at all the bank statements, transactions appear on the very next day. On the way back, a car appeared, and Franciszek for some reason got very interested in that pickup. He was like, "Hey, look, have a look at the pickup. Interesting logo." But looking back, maybe that's the reason he wanted to point my attention at this car, was the registration contains letters from Mateusz name. I think numbers as well are relevant, 369 or whatever, just like the Instagram handle. We started talking about superiors, that some of them, it's all about having a good boss. Some of them can motivate you. He said that some of those surgeons that they have for briefings and everything, some of them are like, you fall asleep when you listen to them. Some of them can fire you up. They can motivate you. Previous line managers, Natasha from book 2017-18. What I told him about Natasha is that, it's an interesting lady because I had a feeling that she was flirting with me. I'm sitting in front of a computer, she sits next to me, talks to me, and then puts her hand on top of my hand, which is, it doesn't feel bad or anything. But then the next day, July 24th, I checked her Instagram account using one of my lurker accounts, the one that when I woke up on July 12th after the camping trip, that was the Instagram account that my Instagram was switched on. Checked her out on that Instagram account and she blocked me. It seems like it was in reaction to what I said, even though she didn't have the right to hear that. It didn't seem coincidental. Now, why do I use a lurker account to look at her Instagram? When I left, we were following each other, had some conversations, as you can see, but when I left book, for some reason she blocked me. There's definitely nothing that I did that would warrant that, right? So she removed me, and then since I figured maybe she had something to do with emotions, so that's why I was using this other account to have a look at her, because as you can see, she's a very interesting person, the content that she posts. Around that time, she posted quite interesting Instagram stories. It all seemed like it was in reaction to something. Surprised facial expressions, her with her female friends, dreamy faces, as if in reaction to something, like they're watching something, and it seemed like they were all posting that to create that impression, right? They wanted to create that impression. This one is very interesting. So those are all the former co-workers from that company, smiling facial expressions as if in reaction to something, right? Mental day. This will be a theme here. In this case, it's going to be a significant theme. I'm going to touch base on that very soon, but take a note of that. July 24th, 2020, a visit to my grandma.
Wzajemnie. O, mówisz?
Once we arrived, I took some drone shots of the area. Just purchased this drone, so I was obviously spending a great deal of time playing around with it. It's usually quite stiff. This time it was unusually stiff for some reason, so I figured I pulled out my phone and I made a couple of phone calls to her stationary number, unbeknownst to her, obviously. So I made a couple of phone calls and then as she was trying to pick it up, I would disconnect, right? It looks mysterious. So what happened is they got very nervous, you know, electric all of a sudden. You know, as you can see in the video, my mom is like looking outside the window. My dad got nervous, you know, like you could feel the tension. There was definitely nervousness in the air. I don't think the situation warranted that.
A tu mieszka, no widzisz Baśka, się raz nie otworzy. Ona dzwoniła na 6 rano, ona śpijana. Ledwo tak. Ja mówię, proszę bardzo, niech pani wejdzie. No.
Ale to się wygłupia z tym
Od razu
telefonem.
mnie opieprzasz, tylko z Łukaszem jesteś. Od razu mnie opieprzasz.
No jesteś taki nerwus, taki...
No bo jestem szybki,
A
energiczny.
jedź, ale
A co ma do nas dzwonić?
siła się gdzieś. Może na jakich wynikach co w pracy. Się śpiła. No to co?
Jakby kontrolował.
A przecież to są z nami przecież.
A, patrioci?
Nie, to tak.
Roboci.
Biedni ludzie, wiesz.
To dobrze, że mama powiedziała.
Nie,
Tak, roboci.
biedni ludzie, wiesz.
Sam dronem podjechał, on tak palcem rękoma, nie? Mówi, że ja nie chcę żadnych ptaków, nie? A on tak fajnie, bo on tam...
My dad is telling some sort of a convoluted story. Just to lighten up the mood, I'm kind of playing along with that, making some funny remarks that don't make really sense. You know, my grandma doesn't, you know, she's, you know, serious. She doesn't seem like she's in the mood for jokes.
Powiedziałem, że nie jestem ptakiem.
on
Nie rozumiał.
Nie rozumiał tego.
Rozumiał tego.
Ja to jest urządzenie.
Przez megafon.
Mówiłem.
Ja jakby lepiej.
Mówi, ale przecież pan jest ptakiem. Że się dziwił, że ty...
Tak
No to
mówi,
tym
tak.
telefonem dzwoni. Może Wojtek, a nie może się...
Ja
Może
ci-
tak w zasięgu,
Ja
może...
Mama daje jak zadzwoni.
Co?
Mama
Ja nie
pokaże.
będę sama
Mama
chodzić.
daje
Nie,
jak
to jest
zadzwoni.
taka z ojcem nerwowa, ja tylko nie lubię chodzić.
Mama daje zadzwoni.
Another interesting bit, if you pay attention to what my brother is doing on his phone, it seems to be scrolling through some pictures. At the time, obviously, it did not catch my attention. So yeah, very interesting. What is he looking at? My dad made a phone call to my uncle, felt like he was scared, and my dad is like speaking loudly and everything, just double checking if this wasn't him who made a phone call.
Dobra, ja zadzwonię. 197.
Może to Wojtek dzwoni.
Już zaraz kurczę. No, ja już Wojtek, no cześć Wojtek, bo my jesteśmy tu u mamy, wiesz? I chodzi o taki sen, że ktoś do mamy dzwonił i się po prostu pytam się, czy to ty przypadkiem nie dzwonisz. A, dobra Wojtek, to wszystko... No to super Wojtek, bo ja już się bałem, że ty do mamy dzwonisz albo Marzena, ale mama mówi, że Marzena nie, tylko to ty dzwonisz, ale to raczej nie. Jesteś tu na urlopie. Dobra Wojtek. Wypoczywaj Wojtek, bo my jesteśmy u mamy tu na kawie, Łukasz jest wnuczek, także wszystko jest w porządku. Dobra, pozdrawiam, wypoczywajcie sobie Wojtek. No trzymaj się, pa, cześć. Dobra, to nie Wojtek.
Babcia by chciała do Gdyni pojechać?
Czy jakby chciała?
Co? Do Gdyni?
Do Gdyni.
Miałem gdzieś pojechać od tam?
Czy się wróci?
Ale tak dalej, bo oni muszą weź buty założyć.
Do Gdyni się przejechać, nie? Gdzieś tam wszyscy.
Do Gdyni.
Another trip to Gdańsk, so this time my dad, myself, my mom, my brother, and my aunt again by herself. We went for a beer. I took a couple of pictures and videos. Again, not very apparent with all the pixels. Seems like they exchanged stares, you know, smiles, and which at the time I didn't notice. Strange workout that my aunt recommended for loose skin, even though there was never a conversation about loose skin. Looks very odd. As you can see, that's the reason I took a video.
Pokaż?
Takiego nie tak,
No,
leżąc,
do
tylko
tyłu.
stoisz, ale przynieś
Nie, wtedy się...
Rozciąga.
rano i wieczorem po południu. Nic się skóra nie będzie.
Very out of place. We stayed until evening. She invited us over for a pizza, for a beer pizza. They live close by, it's walking distance. Before doing so, I took a video of a karaoke bar party. And I later on sent it to Leah. In late 2019, a co-worker, Ricardo, of Portuguese nationality, passed away in mysterious circumstances. I was never told of the reason. Autopsy took unusually long. Not that I would know, but other co-workers were saying that they don't know that autopsy is still there when we were talking about funeral arrangements. The night before the funeral in Cascais, Portugal, near Lisbon, we went out to grab some beer and there was a karaoke party. She sent me a picture of a Polish Airlines lot jet. She was flying back from Canada, where she was supposedly from March, before the lockdown. She was coming back to work on the same day as me, as well as other people. I replied with the video from the karaoke bar. We Portugal all over again. Looking back, maybe she was trying to tell me something. I came up with this idea of creating like a memorial video, and it's later when I started investigating this whole case. I looked at the pictures, the videos that they sent. Unusual, very strange, like subtle gestures, subtle, smirks, smiles on their faces, like they were playing some sort of a joke. Very strange. There's something off about this video, right? Especially this bit. The person who films this shakes the phone as if, to create some sort of an impression of something like ominous, Something ominous is about to happen. He shakes the phone and then puts it down. Very odd, very strange, and just very strange that they send it. We stayed the evening at my aunt's flat. My uncle was there as well. Only memorable bit was that he was talking about their buffet, like the food that they get served at the workers' buffet, workers' restaurant, whatever that's called. His remark was that it was very, very greasy, very fatty. Over and over again talking about the fatty, greasy food. And he also showed me a palm top or tablet that he bought or got from one of the shipments or something. And this company, I looked them up, they sell like rugged military application electronic devices. We took Uber home, we got home. The same night she posted an Instagram story of her on that flight from Canada to London. My former co-worker from the company prior to the private aviation company, right, 2017-18, Ruxandra, she does, like readings, astrology. She has a YouTube channel. So she posted this on her Instagram. A thank you letter from one of her clients. She advised him not to make friends with people who he or she works with because they will betray him. Something in between the lines there. The most interesting thing about Ruxandra, when you look at her CV, LinkedIn, she is originally from Romania, supposedly. However, when you listen to her, she speaks with impeccable English, North American accent. It's not something you can learn whilst living in Romania. It always puzzled me, although I never questioned her on that. Also, she was a very good friend of Natasha. These two are close. Ruxandra even invited her for her wedding in Romania. They had very good relationship. We went to the beach, again, myself, my dad and my mom. My brother was at work at the time. My mom's best friend who was supposed to meet us at the beach, Monica. For some reason, she was there with her friend as well, another female whom I didn't know, and I don't think my mom also knew. So once we arrived, what was interesting is they went somewhere else. Like, we weren't laying in the same spot. They went somewhere completely else, a little bit further down. Maybe because of that friend of my mom's best friend didn't know her. Maybe it was because of that. At some point, we got approached by a younger male. Approached my dad and he asked whether he has any beer for sale whilst smiling. My dad was also smiling. I don't know what prompted this guy to approach my dad to ask him for beer. The weather completely broke. Complete breakdown of the weather. It just changed in a matter of seconds. Obviously, there's no connection between this case and that weather. I'm putting it here to paint the climate, the atmosphere, how it felt on that day, right? I took a couple of videos of my parents quickly disassembling the tent. It just looked funny.
Mina miał to kurde, bo jak mi ucieknie. Moje.
Moje.
Moje, twoje.
Moje. Basia, ty jest inna.
Z ojcem siądziemy, piweczko. Plus. Ja nie jestem Bartek.
Jesteś Bartek.
Ja jestem Bartek.
When we got back from the beach, we went to grab some pizza in a local pizza shop, and as we were doing so, a friend appeared. Patrick, that's the reason I started recording. He lives within that area. There's nothing super unusual, but in later parts you will see that all of a sudden there's a lot of friends, acquaintances bumping into me seemingly out of nowhere. Like I said, series of coincidences is that's not a coincidence, statistically, scientifically. And also, he made a very strange gesture with his left shoulder, as you can see, very odd. So a little bit about Patrick, a former classmate. We grew up together, very introverted. He spends most of his time home playing video games. His parents are, I don't know, he gets an allowance of sorts, or maybe, I don't know, something. Lives in his own flat, 1-2 stories beneath his parents. Doesn't seem to be doing much work professionally. I don't know where he's at. Since teen years, he seemed to be very interested in an online forum called 4chan, online hacktivist group, anonymous, all that stuff. He's an avid 4chaner. He has folders where he saves all the memes. I believe he might even associate himself with this whole community, the B, anonymous and all that bullshit. Whenever I get an opportunity, we'll play some video games like kids. And when I say we, the way it works is, there's a video game. He's like, okay, play, and he observes the way I play. He analyzes, he watches closely, and it seems like his perception of me is based on my performance in that game. If I'm able to outachieve him, it's me playing video games on his computer. He watches 4chan, very introverted, plays video games. That's pretty much it. As we were coming back home from that pizza, my dad made a small rant about money issues. Again, consistent with the argument in that summer house.
Powie mi nie bierz, bo nie można brać. No idź. To jest tak samo jak ten Tadek mówi, z Olą się niczego nie dorobił, a ja z mamą się niczego nie dorobiłem. Tak samo teściu nie dorobił się niczego z teściu.
2-3 days, I think on July 9th, prior to the camping trip, I booked a flight to London for July 27th, 2020 for myself and my mom. Flat was empty, so I figured great opportunity to invite my mom and show her London, right? I lived with a French couple, Joanna and Raphael, also was a Czech male. Despite living in London for, at the time, 7 years, I was always busy and I was always visiting them, flying to Poland, living in, flat shares and everything. I just never had the time, never had the capability to accommodate them. They're always busy. So great opportunity. My mom was very keen, obviously.
Takie są wieśniaki. No. Nic nie zrobisz.
Automatically at the next station.
Za 13 minut musimy iść, bo jeden przystanek przejechaliśmy, dlatego że stacja moja zamknięta jest z jakichś tam powodów.
There was a package waiting for me, a box full of surplus military gear from United States that I purchased during the lockdown furlough thing. I used to collect that as a kid, I used to buy that, flip it, sell it, and airsoft and all that. And all of a sudden the gear equipment that in 2010, 9, 8 was quite expensive. Now it's just dirt cheap. I ordered it to London, cool stuff. So yeah, we had some drinks with my mom, a small bit about the area where I live in London. Overlooking that whole area, there's an abandoned building called the Mayhew House. It's been vacant for a couple of years now. Heard contradicting stories about why it has been vacated. Some stories about fireproof cladding. There was a huge fire in London in 2017. Based on a quick Google search, it turns out that it's asbestos. It cost £3 million to remove most of that asbestos. someone sees an extreme potential in this building, in this real estate. Played around with the drone. The view from that building, from the very top of that building, is beautiful. At London skyline, you can see the Eye of London, you can see the city skyline. Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge is literally 30 minutes walk. That's how close it is. Central London, but it doesn't feel like it. There's a park. I did a lot of 1-hour walks during the whole lockdown COVID thing. Central London, everywhere's close, but it doesn't feel like you're in Central London. Great area. At the time, I used to live in Damery House. February, September 2020. Oftentimes, at the time, I had a feeling of being watched. Anyone can enter that abandoned building, and anyone could be looking straight at the residents of Damery House and any other buildings that are around it. I then moved to the other side of that abandoned building. This one is called Taxted Court, where I live. Pretty much the same layout. I have lived there since September 2020, continuously till September 2021. I briefly left to Poland, September 2021 till January 2022. I left my things in there, but I was in Poland. I was renting an apartment in Poland. I was working from home. This year, continuously, my Google timeline shows my starting location, as in my home location, as that old address, as flat 22 Damery House, which is obviously inaccurate, right? For that very reason, I purchased a body camera, because I understand that this is connected to the case. Someone tries to create an impression that I'm somewhere else, right? Anytime I leave the flat, I take a video mentioning the time, the date, and where am I going, just to make sure there's a record that I can challenge the Google timeline manipulated, tampered records with. Mentioned that in part 2 as well. I went out with my mom the next day. We went to see the river, literally 10 minutes. Nice view, city skyline, Tower Bridge and all that, so I took a couple of pictures.
Chciała plażę nad Tamizą.
Dobra.
To ma plażę.
Że nad Tamizą, nie?
Tak. Nawet kruki są
Normalnie to
Stąd jest woda, tylko... No. Można jakieś skarby znaleźć.
And then we went to grab some coffee, nothing fancy, coffee in Bermondsey next to Sainsbury. In my backpack I had a yogurt. Figured I'm gonna have that yogurt, and I spilled it all over my shirt. So anyways, yeah, so we had some coffee. The reason I'm mentioning that is because a couple of males sitting on my left-hand side, and there was a black male sitting opposite of me. At some point he stood up. He approached these two gentlemen on the left, and he asked for light. To light up his cigarette. They lit up his cigarette. He went back to his table. At the time, I thought to myself, it looked like it was some sort of a signal or something. It's not the fact that he asked for that light, it's how he did that. It just looked artificial. That's the reason I remember that. And at the time, obviously, I didn't think nothing of it. I just thought it's just ridiculous. A scene from a film, that's how it looked like. In the context of everything that's happening, potentially it could have been some sort of surveillance, some form of a hint. Definitely memorable because of how unnatural it looked, like they were rehearsing a scene. That's how it looked like. We then went back. There was a gentleman sitting on his chair, sunbathing. Obviously, that's the reason I took those pictures of my mom. She's smiling, giggling, because it just looked funny. I immediately made a connection with an article that I sent to my coworkers from during the lockdown thing in March. There was an article from my hometown of Gdańsk. There was a gentleman sitting on a bench, half undressed. Everyone's wearing masks and all that, and he's just not giving a fuck. He's just sitting there like a boss. Posted that on that group. Very unusual social media activity. Natasha, this is what she posted around that time. Picture of a person falling asleep on a train. The night before, I flew with my mom and we took a train from the airport as well. Seemed coincidental. Series of coincidences aren't coincidental. Her other posts, this one of somewhat of a sexual nature. Very strange, very, very strange thing to post, in my opinion. strange things that are happening to me because of this case. There's no two questions about it. Issues with the editing program, Final Cut Pro, strange glitches, a project getting corrupted just as I was rendering it, strange glitches, freezes. Someone has the ability to sabotage my work. Another bit, my hard drive. I keep my hard drives at my parents' flat in Poland, in Gdańsk. I notice a lot of videos and pictures being deleted. Clearly someone has access. There is some tampering with my albums, right? So why would anyone do that, right? Very good example, New Year's Eve 2009. The only videos and pictures that I have are some fireworks firing prior to the New Year's Eve. I know exactly where I went for that New Year's Eve. I know exactly with whom. I know exactly with whom I was coming back, and I know exactly that I took a lot of pictures and videos, right? Someone deleted them. Question is why? Deleted files, that's factual. That would be obviously a criminal offense, right? Computer theft, unauthorized access, whatever the article. Who doesn't have pictures from New Year's Eve? You can see my unfair dismissal litigation with the company also looks like someone is influencing that process. So I have recently received a letter that the discrimination bit that has been dismissed. In any other circumstances, it wouldn't have been dismissed. Company update a couple of days prior to my termination. Obviously at the time I didn't know about it. Ian, the chief commercial officer, my direct and indirect superior, at some point, as you can see, he supposedly was in New York at the time. However, the background looks very much like in Gdynia, where Mateusz lives. By the way, very expensive area of Gdynia. I thought to myself, that's a very unusual background. He moves his head to the back, all the way to the back, as if he was trying to point in a direction, right? Conversation with Franciszek. He mentions a friend who was harassed and everything, that he worked for services, as in intelligence services. He mentions something about gay porn, that the actor looked very much like me, and he can't believe that I have enemies like this. What enemies? What are you talking about? Sends me a video of himself in a police car spitting at me. At the time I failed to notice. Another example, I enter my local park, a guy shows up, calls his dog over, those supposedly, aggressive pit bulls or whatever. No leash, no nothing. Definitely illegal, like I said, on its own, maybe coincidental, but this fits into a wider theme that I've been experiencing specifically this year. Another example, February 14th, there was a female and two males arguing in front of the entrance to the apartment complex where I live, along with a huge dog. Again, no leash, nothing. And they're arguing, so obviously I decided to postpone my attempt to enter that apartment complex because it just looks suspicious. At some point they started chasing each other on that street. They chased each other around, the dog and everything, no leash. And then a police car appears, signals and everything. If someone were to take a picture or video, it looked like it's me who initiated this whole thing and not these guys, right? Most recent example, I went to my local park. A female threw a stick directly at my face, barely hitting an eye, and then she was like apologizing, claiming that it's an accident. She almost hit my eye, it left a mark. I was on my phone, I was walking, so I wish I had a body cam at the time. She almost hit my eye, as you can see, it left a mark. There's more examples like this, I'll make a separate episode.
To, żebym się do ciebie przypierdalał, ale tak rachunkiem prawdopodobieństwa, nie? To ty jako analityk mógłbyś to bardziej rozkminić. Co jest bardziej prawdopodobne, że wszyscy sobie coś wkręcili, że ty sobie coś wkręciłeś?